So you can go back to your Pathfinder, you can find that cutout that you just created, right click and detach it from the model. Then you want to kind of get into a side view here, and you can turn on the background if you want, and what you want to do is just simply fence select that geometry, and using the arrow you want to pull this to the right, and I would go about 20 millimeters. Okay, so that moved that out of the way, and now what you can do then is go back to your cutout, right click and attach, and now those holes don't interfere with the main body of the part. You want to show adding some dimensions, show how you can drive this synchronous part using dimensions. I'm going to take this value, and you can see as I push this out I'm going to make this 28, and at the same time I'm going to lock that dimension. Then I may want to show that I can drive that location. I'm going to pick this hole and come to this edge, and from that hole to this edge. And now if I change that dimensional value, you can see it's going to maintain that 28 millimeter dimension as I change this inside value. I'm going to make it 15. When I select this dimension, you want to make sure the arrow is pointing toward the end face, and then just drag this back to about 115. Okay. Another cool thing to show, I'm going to come over here and grab this face, move the steering wheel down to the bottom edge, because I want to change the angle of this inside. Now you see as I drag this in that the face falls into the hole. Okay, this is what we call select set priority. You can change that behavior to model priority, where it will maintain that hole as you drag that angle. So it just shows you how that works. Different options that we have. And you can make that, minus 5 degrees. Next thing I want to do is add some rounding to my part. So I'm going to select the round command, and I'm going to use the all fillets, and you want to pick the part and you want to make this 3 millimeters, and before you accept it, I just hit the tab to preview that, is you want to remove some edges. So I'm going to remove this inside corner and the inside corner on the opposite side, because this is going to be machined. This inside faces are going to be machined, so they won't have any rounds. So you want to right click to accept that, change your filter again to all fillets, change the option to all rounds, select the part, and you want to change the option then to face, hold the control key to remove all of the inside faces and the 2 outside faces of the ears, as I'm showing here, and you right click to accept. So you can see the rounds are all applied to the outside edges, but left off of the machined faces. Another thing to show after you do that is you can see, based on the operations of rounding the fillets and the rounds, I didn't get the desired result. So I'm going to click these small corners, and once I have those selected, I'm going to right click and reorder the rounds, which is pretty cool to show. Take this front face and shift click the origin of the steering wheel. You can move it to the center of that hole if you want, and you can rotate those 2 faces. I'm going to rotate them back about 25 degrees or so, and then also show that you can modify a particular round. In this case, I'm going to modify this and make it 15. And of course you can show making that an even dimension if you want. Make that back to 115. Also want to add a dimension for the overall height of the ears for mounting the transaxle. You can change that to whatever you want. Some even dimension. And you may want to add an overall height dimension as well. I'm going to make it 150. And so you can see how that part fits into the frame. I'm going to add one last dimension. I'm going to add an angular dimension between the bottom edge and this face. And I'm going to go ahead and lock this dimension because I don't want this angle to change. Doesn't really matter what that angle ends up being, but it's good to lock it. So now I want to create a drawing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this model, and then I'm going to go to New, Create Drawing. Once again, you're going to want to browse to the quick sheets, and you're going to pick up casting. Now again, depending on which angle projection you're using, if you're using first angle, you want to click casting first. Do not run the drawing view creation wizard and click OK. So that puts the model. You can see that retrieve dimension was turned on for that particular view, and it retrieved those particular dimensions. I want to add a top view, so I'm going to use the principal view. I'm going to select a top view. You can modify what edges get shown. If you want to show tangent edges, you can turn that on so that when you select it, you can see all those tangent edges for the rounds. I also want to create a section view because I have that cutting plane in there. I can simply go to the section view, and I do not want to show hidden lines in my section view, so I'm going to go to the options here and turn off hidden edges and pull over here. You can see that you get that section view. You also may want to move the views around a little bit so you can show how those views will maintain their alignment as you drag them around. Always impressive to AutoCAD folks. You also may want to show adding in isometric view as we did before. We pull off at an angle, and of course we get that nice isometric shaded view. Good for visualization for the person who's manufacturing it. I'm going to zoom back into this area because through the section view you can see we have a pretty thin area. I'm going to use my distance between dimension here to show just what that dimension is. I'm going to show what the dimension for the overall thickness is also. You can see that based on that, whether it's baselined or stacked. So we can see we have this thin section area. You may want to put a reference dimension in here for the actual depth of that cut if you want. So once we have a couple dimensions in there, we want to go back to the model and make a change. And the thing we want to point out here is that we can change the 3D model just as we would change this AutoCAD drawing. We can get this same geometry using live section. So you want to switch windows back to the part, and at this point we can just turn off our PMI dimensions. We don't need to see it because we want to create this live section. So we'll just create a coincident plane with this face, and you want to move it back to the center point of the hole. Make sure your filter is set to center. And at this point we can just create a live section on that plane. So what's good to point out here is that that live section looks exactly like that section view. You can see that same geometry, and then you can of course modify that geometry exactly the same as you would in the 2D. So go ahead and add your distance between dimension here. Same dimension that we had in the 3D, or in the 2D I mean. See both of those dimensions, and you can take that dimension, either one of them, and you can modify that dimension to modify the 3D model. So you can see as I'm changing that dimension in the 2D, it's changing to 3D, and I'm going to put in 12 millimeters. You could also show that you can pick any edge of that 2D. You get the steering wheel, and you can use that to also modify the 3D model. So I might want to move that down an extra 10 millimeters to strengthen that particular area of the model. Okay, so at this point then you can go back to your draft file, and you can see that it's telling you that a change has been made to the draft or to the 3D. So we also need to make that same change to the 3D to simply update the views. When you do that, you get Dimension Tracker, which is showing you some dimensional changes that have occurred in the model. And if you click on that and you go to Find, it will zoom you right to the particular dimension that's changed. You can see the previous value as well as the current value for that particular dimension. And if you don't want to add those triangles, you can just clear the select set. It removes those change triangles. So at this point, we've shown modeling a synchronous part, and we've shown making the draft sheet and then going back and making a change to the draft sheet using live sections. At this point then you can save this draft file if you want to, or you can just close it, go back to your 3D model, and if you close and return, you'll see that 3D model, that synchronous model, in the context of the overall assembly. And we can flip this back over, and we'll flip to our next configuration, which is the assembly design, where you'll go in and design the mower deck.